luxury. What does that even mean, right? It's a new trend. It's something that we see all over TikTok, and we know we're seeing in articles and papers and Instagram, and I've seen videos here on YouTube. And I usually don't talk too much about trends because I'm not I admit, not a trend follower, never have been, but I do think it's interesting. And I know it does absolutely influence what we wear and what we see in the stores, and possibly even what we decide to do with our purchases, what we decide to buy, because we see it on our favorite, singer or actor or whatever. And so today I want to talk a little bit about quiet luxury because I think it really is an interesting trend. And I'll talk about why I'm using the word trend here, because in quotes, because again, all of these things that I think, in my opinion, have always existed. It's become something that somebody commented on and therefore, caught on for some reason or another. So where is this even coming from? So there's a TV show called Succession. There's a certain aesthetic for that show. I won't go into details about the characters or anything, but they are wealthy people. And there's a couple of comments that have gone on about like different designers or things that people have worn and it being not in line with the way that the wealthy, dress. And there is a saying, money talks, wealth whispers. And that is an interesting perspective. It is certainly a trend or an aesthetic that has been around for a long time. I don't think this is new. I don't think quiet luxury is in any way new. I think the term maybe, and the fact that it's now, quote, caught on as a trend, yeah, absolutely. But it's been around for forever. I grew up in a very old New England town. How I ended up there is a long story about my parents and my mom's dad, my grandfather, and the land that he bought in a town, in an old New England town. But I'll tell you, like, the town I grew up in is that very much like old, what people I think envision as like an old money, old New England town. I was not like that, but that was most of the town. And so I definitely grew up with that aesthetic. And growing up in New England, any of you out there who know of New England, know of Boston, or have been here, it is a very understated fashion aesthetic here in New England. First of all, the weather's bad. It's not nice weather. You're not wearing your, $2,000 shoes in the, 6 feet of snow. It's just, it won't last long, let me tell you. So yeah, there's that. There's also just the culture and the aesthetic around here is just very understated. It's more of that, I wouldn't even say preppy. It's just kind of an understated look for a lot of folks. And again, because it's not something we really focus on, it's not a fashion capital in any way. You go to Miami or LA or even like Chicago, definitely New York, of course. And then outside of the US, you have, many places. You have Milan and you have London and, Paris, of course, that have a much more of a focus on the fashion industry. We really don't in Boston. And in fact, that's reflected in the collections that we get here. Like, to be honest, if you're looking for like a nouveau kind of new, designer, somebody really innovative, you're probably not going to even find it. Our biggest known or our most well-known like shopping street, like Michigan Ave in Chicago or Fifth Ave in New York, we have something called Newbury Street, which is a beautiful old street with lots of brownstones. It's gorgeous. Definitely, if you come to Boston, check it out. But the stores that are there are Chanel and Dior and Max Mara and Loro Piana, and again, beautiful designers. I love all of them. But it's not, it's not Dries Van Noten. That's not who we are. And so we don't tend to get those designs, and we tend not to get those things. H&M recently did a collab with Mugler, H&M. That's not coming to Boston. It's just not. Now, Boston has changed a little bit over the years, and of course, cities always change and evolve, which is amazing, which is great. But Boston has a tendency to stay in the past in some ways. And again, I grew up here, so it's what I know, it's what I love, and I'm a very understated person in my aesthetic, the way I dress, my makeup, all of it. Except for maybe my hair. My hair color is probably not understated. But, if I do something that's a little bit more sparkly or shiny or unique, it's in my jewelry or it's in my makeup. It's very rarely in my clothes. I don't wear big, bold designs. It's not that I don't appreciate or love them. I do. I'm like, wow, it looks gorgeous, but I just wouldn't feel comfortable wearing it. It's not my aesthetic. It's not who I am. I don't really have any bright colors in my wardrobe recently, and it's a long story about why, but I've been trying to find this certain shade of orange for this event thing that I'm doing, and I don't have any in my closet. Nothing with orange in it. Nothing. Not one thing. I'm like, huh, interesting. Nothing with red. I mean, that's kind of obvious, but like, I would say like half my closet is black and then shades of blue. So, you know, it's really interesting. And then like tones of cream and beige. And that's, you know, that's pretty normal. And frankly, the aesthetic of where I grew up and now where I live. I was gone for a very long time, came back. And I've been around the world and I've been to other places and I've seen other aesthetics and other things, which I greatly appreciate again, but not who I am as a person. So when this quiet luxury came up, I just thought, okay, this is gonna be interesting because I definitely want to talk about this, even though I don't usually talk about trends and bring it back to fashion and beauty. So as we all know, these types of trends can influence collections and designs. And so what generally happens if you see this at like a very high level with, you know, high-end designers, they'll come out with some very few pieces in this particular color or pattern or design. If it catches on, it becomes popular. There are knockoffs, less expensive designers do it, then other lines do it, and then it becomes sort of fast fashion as well, where you have like, you know, the H&Ms of the world who do these types of things. And unfortunately, it's more disposable fashion, which I don't love, but I get it. You know, there's the ability to buy something relatively inexpensive in a design or an aesthetic that you like, and then you can change it in a couple of months. The way that I've always dressed, and again, growing up, that was very much the aesthetic, is that you buy something that's really good quality and you keep it forever. Like forever. The rest of your life. You know, and it's true, I have pieces that are like 30 years old, easy. Shoes, bags, sweaters, coats, especially coats. And so that's what this quiet luxury thing kind of is. It's this, you know, understated, elegant, well-made products. That's generally what we're talking about. But there is an element of the quiet part. And so let me just break it down for you, for those of you who are interested. The idea is that the item, the product, this fashion is rare and unique. So it's not something that people would automatically identify or understand or know. It's really well made, really excellent quality with excellent technicians or skilled craftsmen making the product. And then it tends to be a certain style. You know, classic lines, nothing too ostentatious would probably be the word. And so that kind of encapsulates what it is. And it has taken off because of the show Succession and the styles and the designs that you know, the designer has decided to do for the show, which is not, I'm sure, you know, I've read some articles, so it's not necessarily what you would consider fashion, but it's now becoming fashion because it's become popular. That's what happens, right? Something takes off and the next thing you know, you see iterations of that for, you know, a couple of years because, like I said, you'll have a couple pieces at a high-end designer and then it gets, you know, down to every store in the mall. So, you know, how this might affect things, I think it's interesting because you're also seeing convergence of, you know, difficult times economically. And as I mentioned in my Will I Buy It, a lot of brands are looking at more neutral palettes. They're doing a lot of reformulation. They're cutting away a lot of things like Dior's. I'm going to have a Dior video coming up that's going to talk about that, guys, about what to buy now and what to wait for because there's going to be a bunch of changes. So that's coming. You know, but there's issues with supply chain, sourcing material, things have become too expensive. So there seems to be a merging of, okay, we need to, as you know, brands, we need to find products that appeal to the most people, but also be price conscious. But at the same time, this quiet luxury trend, which is extremely expensive, very high-end products that, frankly, mere mortals can not afford. So I think as those things merge, you're going to see a lot of, you know, duplicates, knockoffs of those types of designs. They'll become more popular, and I've already started to see it. There's a particular baseball cap. It's a cashmere baseball cap. I think it's Laura Piana. Laura Piana is a designer that I absolutely love. Italian. I mean, just I love Loro Piana, and Brunello Cucinelli is another name. Love both their design, but extraordinarily expensive. And so you're going to start to see other folks do those types of designs because they've become so popular and people are looking to wear those clothes because they see it on the show and they want to wear them. But very few people can afford a $1,000 baseball cap, or frankly should buy a $1,000 baseball cap because, like, that's a lot of money. So you'll start to see ones for like $500, you know, or $300, like high-end luxury, but you could get it if you wanted to. And then, you know, then you'll start to see more fast fashion that resembles those things, but is not those things. H&M has done collections with, you know, high-end designers that do these types of things. They just did their Mugler one, H&M and Mugler. If you bought a Mugler sparkly bodysuit, it's like $2,000, but you could get it for, you know, $100 at H&M. And those are very highly sought after collections and collabs because, again, you know, people want a piece of this thing, this beautiful, well-made collection. But most people can't, you know, I'm not going out and buying $2,000 bodysuits. So, you know, it gives you a piece of that, a taste of that without, you know, having to rob a bank. So yeah, I mean, that's an interesting perspective and aesthetic that I see coming. So I do think we might see more of that, in the beauty world and the fashion world, more of this monochromatic, a little bit more neutral, high-end cuts and clean lines. And if you like those things, like I do, that's fantastic. If you don't like those things, don't worry. There's still a lot of other things out there. Trends never happen just like one trend. I watched the Chanel runway, and it's very sparkly, very shiny. Some of it, in my opinion, was like too chaotic. But anyway, there were sequin leg warmers, which brought me right back to 1985. Do I have any need for sequin leg warmers? No. Did I suddenly want them? Yeah, I did. I suddenly was like, I need sequin, and they're probably like $2,000. But anyway, so there's lots of different trends. This won't be the only one, but I do think it will have a little bit of an effect on fashion. So I wanted to talk about a couple pieces that I think do fit into this quiet luxury bucket. The Row, which is actually a newer house. It's the Olsen twins, actually, who designed this. I have a couple pieces by the Row. I bought a sweater, a cashmere sweater, one of the most beautiful cashmere sweaters I've ever owned, when Barney's went out of business. And I happened to be in Beverly Hills, and they were doing like 50 to 70% off because they were closing. And I bought a sweater from the Row that was originally like $3,000 for like $800, which is still a ridiculous amount of money, but I realized it was the only chance I was ever going to be able to find or buy something like that, so I bought it. My husband bought a jacket as well, and like the quality is amazing. The feel of it, I gotta tell you, like the ingredients, if you will, they source for these clothes, the feel of them is amazing. The softness, the lightness, the way they drape, it is beautiful, and that's why it's luxury. The quiet part comes from, like I said, the fact that it's rare, but also because there's no logos. There's no real way of knowing who designed the item or product or sweater or whatever, unless you're somebody who knows, you know, the quality of the product, but you wouldn't necessarily know if it's Max Mara or the Row. You just know that it's extremely high quality cashmere. You could probably tell from the cut and the design if you're somebody who's really into fashion, but again, that's, you know, very small subset of people. So there's no, you know, there's nothing to signify the designer. So the Row is one. Acris, which is a line that I've loved for a long time. They do have a less expensive line as well. You know, they have fewer pieces, very clean lines, beautiful fabrics. Brunello Cucinelli, stunning. Brunello's a stunning line of clothes, but extremely expensive. Cashmere, like, it feels like nothing you've ever felt before, but I think he does t-shirts that are like $1,000. So beautiful, but again, astronomical prices. Loro Piana, who also has silks and cashmeres, which are stunning. There's a scarf that I've wanted from Loro Piana for, I don't know how long, 10 years. Every time I'm like gonna buy myself something special, I'm like, I'm gonna buy one. I never do, because it's just a ridiculous amount of money. But they are beautiful, and I will say the craftsmanship on these, you know, lines are beautiful, stunning. Lanvin, I had a pair of Lanvin ballet flats years ago, beautifully made, and I actually gave them to someone because I never wore them, like never. And I just felt like it was such a waste because they were beautiful, but I just never wore them. I just didn't. So anyway, but yeah, so those are some of the lines that readily come to mind. There's more. Celine is a brand that has that kind of aesthetic, you know, very clean, simple lines. If you're interested in following trends, or you really like the quiet luxury that you're seeing, or you watch the show and you want to dress like them, I'd say find, you know, anything that doesn't have a logo on it, anything that you can't tell who made it, that has really good quality and looks really clean cut, classic, if you will. Simple in some ways, because it all comes down to the product, the ingredients, the materials being used. It's kind of like food. A lot of times the best food you've ever had is very simple in its nature, but it's extremely fresh or extremely well prepared, you know, that type of thing. Like if you have a strawberry fresh picked from a garden somewhere, it's like the best taste in the world because it's freshly picked off a vine. That kind of thing is what quiet luxury is. It's the best materials, it's the best craftsmen making something truly beautiful and simple, but also that it's rare. And one of the things is, you know, these price points are very, very high. Some of the designers I just mentioned, you go look them up, they're extremely high. And for most of us, we're not, you know, going to be shopping these brands, but there are other brands that have that type of aesthetic that I think will become, you'll see it more. You know, those types of designs or those types of, that type of aesthetic, people will try to copy to follow this trend, which for me is good because I like these designers. I like that. Max Mara is one. I'm wearing Max Mara sweater now. Max Mara is definitely high end, don't get me wrong, but they also have some pieces that are a little more affordable. I would say, you know, higher end luxury. There's a bunch of others. Like I said, Celine is coming up. You can find, and I think there'll be more of it as we move on with this trend. I think as it becomes popular, if it stays popular. Problem nowadays is there's very much like fast fashion. Something that's really popular and then all of a sudden it's over. So we'll see how long this sticks around, but I can tell you right now it's all over TikTok. So when it comes to beauty, like what does that translate into beauty? So the brands that came to mind and the way I did my look today is to be honest, kind of how I do my makeup a lot of the time, which is a very simple, fresh face, not a lot of foundation, but a foundation that looks dewy and skin-like and healthy. Like you're able to get a facial every other day and go for yoga and, you know, have spa treatments because you don't have to worry about things like, you know, work because it's not what you do. That's the look that we're talking about. And so I use the Clé de Peau Cushion Foundation, which gives me that kind of look. You just look really healthy and glowy, and it definitely conceals what you want to conceal, but it doesn't make it look like you're wearing, you know, like a lot of makeup. Clé de Peau is also a very, in my opinion, quiet luxury brand for a lot of its aesthetic. Sometimes they have more like flashy, you know, things, but even the logo is pretty simplistic. And it doesn't necessarily call out what it is. You have to know the logo. So that's kind of what I'm talking about. And it's simple packaging, you know, well quality, good ingredients, expensive. Not everybody knows about it and it works. It's good at what it does, but it doesn't call that out. Westman Atelier is another one. I mean, it's the most understated thing you've ever seen. You wouldn't even know it was Westman Atelier unless you look really close and it's like imprinted into the black on black. You can hardly tell that there's a name there. Again, though, but if you know the aesthetic, if you know who makes this, if you know Westman and you're like, oh, I know that design, you know, that's kind of the quiet luxury thing. So I have that on today. I also have Westman Atelier blush on. This is in Put a Rose, which is actually one of my favorites. I don't talk about it a lot. It's like a hockey puck of a compact, but again, very understated on the outside. You know, it's black matte and you can hardly see the name, again, imprinted into the design, but it's hefty, it's weighty. You can tell it's made of good quality. It's good product. And the product itself has good ingredients, and gives a beautiful, elegant, luminous look without being ostentatious. And this one's actually pretty pigmented. I use it as more like a highlighting blush. But then I took the Chantecaille blush in Bliss, which again, the packaging, you notice, no logos, no anything, just Silver Pebble. And this is a great shade if you're looking for something that's, you know, very pretty but very understated, luminous look. The lipstick is La Bouche Rouge, which is, again, you notice the trend here. No logos, no shiny, no anything. Black on black and black. Or if, you know, these are leather cases that they make out of remnants that are refillable. There's tons of different shades. Again, none of them are, you know, catch your attention kind of packaging. It's all very simplistic. Elegant, well made, but simple. And that's the aesthetic. That's quiet luxury, or at least what they're calling quiet luxury now. And then on my eyes, I have Dior in soft cashmere because I just felt like, well, that's, you know, the perfect name. But also, this is the aesthetic. They're, you know, it's not over the top. It's not calling out what it is or what you're wearing or who your designer is. It's just very simple. A bag that I've been looking at for years, the Celine box bag. The Row has similar bags, but similar to the Hermes Clemence bag. And Hermes has become sort of too ubiquitous, if you will. Like, everybody knows the H. Everybody knows what it is. And so it's too, for quiet luxury to be quiet luxury, it has to be quiet. So you don't know who the designer is. And frankly, if you have to ask, you're not, you know, part of the quiet luxury crowd, or at least that's what this aesthetic is. I'm not saying this me personally. I'm saying this is the idea of it. So, you know, a lot of the Celine pieces are very understated, and they weren't particularly popular for a while. I love Celine, but they're coming back and becoming more popular. I know they're becoming more popular because I follow like The Real and Fashion File to buy older pieces. I like vintage in bags especially. And I noticed that the prices of the Celine pieces are going up. So if you're interested in like Celine or some other designers or some older vintage bags, buy now, because the prices are starting to go up on the secondary market. One, because I think this sort of quiet luxury trend is catching on. I think it's going to actually be more popular than some other trends. But anyway, yeah, I've noticed Celine starting to like creep up. So I need to buy. I've been thinking about buying a box bag for forever. The new Triumph bag, I love. Similar kind of thing, a little bit more, you know, it's got the Celine logo thing on the front, but still it's not, you'd have to know what the logo is. And it's very like understated, elegant design, but it's become very popular. It's like kind of the it bag. In the teen size actually is more popular. That's another thing. There's a line from the show. He says, you know, your girlfriend brought this capacious bag. What is she going to do? Put her shoes in her flats to run to the train after work? Because, you know, again, this is a group of people who don't, you know, they don't have the worries that I would think most of us do, which is like, I have to, you know, get the kids to soccer practice and I got to run over here and I got to, you know, drop off laundry or whatever it is. Like, those aren't, you know, again, we're talking about a very small subset of society. So they have very tiny bags, very tiny purses, because they don't need to carry stuff. They got other people to do that for them. Apparently, I do not have that. I have large bags, but that's where that comes from. You know, the idea of just an accessory, not a necessity. That's kind of the thing. But I do think, you know, we'll see a little bit more neutrality, understated elegance in a lot of the clothing and the brands and the makeup that we see to follow this trend. That tends to how these trends happen. We'll see how quickly it moves through, though. Like, these things can happen very fast now because technology, TikTok, things like that move very quickly, and it's out of fashion before you know it. But the luxury, really high-end brands don't move that quickly. They do have a much slower pace. If something was popular 10 years ago with a particular group of people, it's going to continue to be. There are certain brands, certain items that, you know, people have forever. What comes to mind just as a, you know, an icon is sort of the Chanel tweed jacket. There's nothing in the old Chanel tweed jackets that says it's Chanel. There are sometimes CCs on the buttons, but honestly, the reason you know it's Chanel is because it's a tweed jacket made impeccably. The old, I mean, honestly, they're beautifully tailored, beautifully made. That's how you know it's a Chanel jacket. And it's become, the design has become, you know, but lots of people have tweed jackets now. It became a design that a lot of people copied. But you can tell the difference between another brand and Chanel if you look at it. but there's not a big logo on it. It doesn't say Chanel. That's what I'm kind of talking about. There are things that will always be just, you know, well made and good quality, and they continue to be. And so really good cashmere, beautiful silk, suedes, leathers, those types of things is kind of the aesthetic. So yeah, I think it'll be really interesting. Again, I'll talk more about like you know, there's certain brands. We'll see if the brands start to shift and do more like this type of quiet luxury kind of branding and packaging and stuff. We'll see. I mean, who knows? There's a lot of other things going on, guys, different trends. This is just one of them, but I thought it was kind of interesting. So thank you so much for joining me today, guys. I really do appreciate it. And I'd love your thoughts on the whole trend, whether you think it's interesting, whether you think it's just silly. I think a lot of these trends are silly, but I do think it's interesting how it impacts what we see in stores, what we buy, that type of thing. And if there's like one item that you have always wanted that kind of fits this bill, you know, like for me with this box bag, it's a very simple item. It's a very simple design, but I like the aesthetic of it. I just think it's really pretty. So one of these days I'll get one. Thanks so much for joining me today, guys. I really do appreciate it. Hope to see you in another video really soon. Bye.